It has been some time since I've looked at a few of these past deck lists from the deck build series that I used to do for how to deck build, and honestly, one of them that I really wanted to return to was Orcust, because it's been a long time, and the last time I really covered the deck was back in when Striker Orcust was a thing in Master Duel, but also back in 2021, as the video I have was released back on November 7th, 2021, for this exact deck list. Now, a lot has changed since that video. Almost 4 years of cards have came out, and a lot can go different in that time, I would say. And let's go back and have my critical thinking skills that I have and have received over the past few years and return to a deck that I once loved that I did not stop playing until November 2021. And I'm going to be back playing it when we get the support in Battle of Legends, as I really want to try out the deck again and see how much it has changed since the last time we had access to Orcust Harp Horror, which was back in January of 2020. So first off, we're going to be looking at this list, and I'm immediately going to remove everything from the side deck because theory has changed over the past 4 years. And let's take out every single card in the main and extra deck that no longer apply to what we need. And a lot of them are just a lot of random jank cards that we don't need, like the scrap stuff, on top of the engines that aren't as good as they used to be, like the Fusion Destiny and all that, getting rid of all the forbidden cards as well, and just going from there. Now, luckily, with the resources from Road to the King and Next Play from online, we have a lot of lists that we can go off of for this whole entire deck, and honestly, quite a bit has not changed ever since we last touched on Orcust, as they really don't play Link Kribo anymore, which is crazy because we have our own new Link 1. Now, why am I bringing up that? Well, in June, we are going to be getting 2 new cards to the Orcust deck that the OCG has had since December, being in Liglisu, the Orcust Mech Knight, and Galatea, the Orcust Automaton. And both of these are either, well, you play one of the Link 4, and you can play 1 to 2 of the Link 1. And it just depends on which version you want and which version you're going for. So, honestly, I think for the time being, because you have things like Cashier Unicorn still in the game, we're definitely going to be playing a total of 2. Now, with that, there is a downside that we don't play Dingrisu anymore. Access Code Talker is iffy, but in my opinion, it still closes out games. And let's just get to the Orcust cards right off the bat. Now, some lists do play the World Legacy Succession, while other lists do not, with Lib. So that is one thing to keep in mind, and let's get into it. Now, first business is first. Orcust Harp Horror. You get straight thrown back into the deck list, along with a third symbol skeleton, because you want as many Orcust names that you can normal summon as possible, and Brass Bombard is one of those options. Because if you do run 2 Link 1s, I've noticed that you do run the Brass Bombard, but also just having it there is a good card just in case. Now, let's go ahead and bring that back up because I didn't mean to do that. Well, of course, we're going to want the third return because we're maxing out on almost every single Orcust name that there is. And you can also play only 1 if you need to, just depending on what all you need. Now, I think we're going to go with the pure version because I wanted to do the Fiendsmith one, but I think Fiendsmith, by the time after Nationals, that deck's going to be neutered and nuked into the ground. So we're going to be doing a tech that OCG did for quite some time with Foolish Burial Goods with Orcust Crescendo. Now, what this does, it allows you to have more starters into Grisu, the Orcust Mech Knight, because Crescendo can search out any dark machine monster once if you banish it from the graveyard, which honestly is great because we have more opportunity to actually draw on the card going first and being able to send another copy off the Foolish Spirit of Goods. Now, honestly, you can play either one or two. That doesn't really matter. Consistency's sake, you can run two, but rather you can just run one. Now, since we're doing more of a pure style, we can introduce a brand new hand trap being Dominus Impulse. A hand trap that you can either have and activate in hand if your opponent controls a card, or you can set it and you're flying. But one of the things that's important is if you have another trap card in the graveyard, being Crescendo or Impermanence, you get to destroy the card that you're negating. And this is great against something like Nibiru if they stick a Fantastical Dragon Phantasme on the board. Because you don't want to negate that. You'd rather negate the actual Nibiru that is a threat to your actual end board. Now, one of the things I do want to add also, because it's limited, Triple Tactics Talent. It's a very, very powerful card, and being a 1-up is great. Now, what else do we add in here that is going to be very useful? Now, of course, you're going to have your Moltrami Fuolos, and now let's do a mixture of hand traps, because we really don't have much else to fill out the deck. We can put the one Brass Bombard in here, and realistically, I think that one of the best things that you could do in this deck is run something like Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, because it definitely helps unbrick your hands if you need it. But also, you could do other things, like you could run the Bestials. And Bestials, we have access to many of them, being the one Drewsworm and Magnemite, 3 Sartanair, 3 Baldrake, and the 3 Lebellion. But I think we're just going to be running the main 2 in the main deck. Now, what else could we put in here? And that could be very detrimental. Now, since we do have the Crossout Designator, we have covered for Fuolos, we have covered for Imperm and Ash Blossom, the 3 top hand traps right now. Of course, we're going to have Lancia in the side deck, because it is a sideable card, but maybe with Alliance Insight format, it's definitely worth maining and having Crossout Designator being a great card for that. But another thing that we could probably get away with is maybe running Nibiru in the main deck as well. Nibiru, because of how powerful it could be. So this is what the list kind of looks like right now, before we get into the extra deck building. Also, one thing I don't want to forget is World Crown. This is a very good card to search off of Orcust Crescendo if you do already have the Grisu. Now, you would also play it in a combo line that you could do that allows you to add it through Lib, but it's definitely interesting to say the least, because that would make it where we can't play Dominus Impulse because we're going to be running a Light Monster for our combo. Because what this does, it allows you to go and set the World Legacy Succession from deck, use the Succession to summon out Galatea to link away into Appaloosa for 2 material. But TCG does not have Appaloosa anymore, so we have to think of other ways of what we could do. Now, outside of that, Lib also shuffles back the token from Grisu that your opponent has, so that's one thing to worry about there, as it then turns on something like Imperm, which we kind of don't want, but if they Imperm us on Grisu, that's absolutely fine, because we have other ways to actually impact what the deck can offer us. Now, I do want to note, I just want to run the 2 Nibiru instead, and have the 3rd sided, just in case, because that feels better for me. And then after that, you'd go Succession to revive the Galatea, and then use the Heart Pourer effect to summon out Nightmare, link with Galatea, or shuffle back the Harp to set the Babel, activate Babel, Galatea and Nightmare to Longrisu, and then you send Symbol Skeleton off in Nightmare, bringing back the Symbol to use the Longrisu, or summon it back the Galatea, so you can go into Dingrisu to attach the Symbol Skeleton, then using the Ding and Longrisu to go into the Lilgrisu. Now, I forgot to add the Longrisu into the extra deck, but that's absolutely fine. Now, let's get into building the side deck. Now, a lot of things have changed since we first relatively looked at this deck. And of course, we're going to be wanting something like SP Little Knight and Dark the Dark Charmer because a lot of decks are going to be running Darks. So there is a couple more spots taken up. We also have Typhon because Typhon's a really good card in this deck because it is a dark monster that we can just summon easily. And there is a case that we can make Chaos Angel just using dark monsters like a Orcust Nightmare and our Symbol Skeleton or Bestial or the Crown with a Harp Horror or Grisu. So there are options there, and honestly, it is something to consider into the deck with that. And honestly, Chaos Angel could definitely be squeezed into that. Now, another thing I do want to note, we can run things like Barricade Board Blocker. We can also run things like Azalea, if you all remember Azalea. That's another option you can do. And what Board Blocker does is that if it's like summon, discard a card during the end phase, add a continuous spell or field spell from your graveyard to your hand, and you can only use that once per turn, and face-up spell cards you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. This protects Babel. It is a Dark Link too, so you have another way to go into things, and honestly, that is fine by me. So it's another option that we can run, essentially, in the actual side deck, or on the extra deck. So I kind of do want to run the Chaos Angel because that does sound nice, being able to just on special summon you could just target a card on the field to banish it, which is great. And also this allows you to run a card, since it is a fiend monster, a Balq, the Lightless Shadow. Using Angel plus Lungrisu, you can go into a bow, use the effect of a bow to discard a card to summon back the Angel and banish another card because that effect is not once per turn. And finally, we only have one spot remaining, and this is where Appaloosa would go, but sadly we don't have her. And since we're not running Lib, we can't really play Lina. But I think that the card we're going to be putting in its place is a card that is old as time for Link monsters, Nightmare Phoenix, because it's just a good generic Link 2. You could essentially just run Nightmare Cerberus because it does target a special summon monster in the main monster zone to destroy it, but I feel like that Nightmare Phoenix is going to be more detrimental over the course of time. Now, let's do a test hand and let's see what happens with our first opening hand. Okay, so the first opening hand, we have Foolish Burial Goods. I could show off what I wanted to show you guys. So, one of the great things about Foolish Burial Goods, it's also an Ash Blossom bait, because it sends from deck to grave, and they think you're going to be running a deck that utilizes it a lot. So we're just going to send the Orcust Crescendo and have that as backup, unless if they DD Crow it, but who's running DD Crow in this format? A few people I know. So what we're going to do is normal summon out the Grisu, the Orcust Mech Knight, and use its effect to send a copy of Orcust Harp Horror from the deck. Now, since there's no other monsters on the field, we can summon out a token to our side of the field and the opponent's side of the field. And then after that, we're going to use the Grisu, the Orcust Mech Knight, to go into our Galatea. Then what we're going to do is going to send the copy of the Orcust Nightmare to be able to either add the World Crown or the Babel. Now, honestly, we're probably going to go and want to add the World Crown for additional bodies, because we can go ahead and special summon the World Crown to the zone that Galatea points to. After that, we're going to use the Galatea and the World Legacy World Crown to go into the Galatea, the Orcust Automaton. So we're using the Link 1 and the card that we searched to go into this. Now, after that, we're going to use the effect of Galatea to banish our Grisu, the Orcust Mech Knight, from our graveyard to special summon it. Now, this is where you would go and summon out Lib here to set the succession and all of that, but I'd rather just skip a few steps because we're not going into Appaloosa. Because here we can go and special summon something on the lines of, I would say, oh, I don't know, Nightmare Phoenix as another Link 2 option, because it is also a fiend monster, so we're going to go into that instead. Now, after that, we're going to use the effect of Orcust Harp Horror, and this will be able to summon out, well, we would summon out something like our Orcust Nightmare, but we already have it, so I'm going to divert a little and go into something like a Symbol Skeleton, even though we could send it, or we could send the Brass, or summon the Brass Bombard. I feel like that Brass Bombard is going to be a little more useful in the long run, and then we could just use the effect of Galatea, shuffling back the Orcust Harp Horror to set our copy of Babel from the deck. And then we're just going to activate the Babel, and what happens here? We're going to use the Galatea and the Nightmare Phoenix to go into a Bow Q, the Lightless Shadow, and we're going to use its effect and discarding the useless Molcharmy, so we can go ahead and banish it to summon back the Galatea. Now, why is that important? Well, what we do now is we're going to activate the effect of Orcust Nightmare, targeting the Galatea, sending a Symbol Skeleton. Then we get to go ahead and link away both the Galatea and the Brass Bombard into Longrisu. After that, we're going to use a Symbol Skeleton effect to summon back the Galatea, not triggering that effect, and then we get to summon her out, and we get to summon out our lovely Dingrisu back. And Dingrisu is going to use its effect, and it's going to attach the Orcust Nightmare to it as a material for the next turn to send something like a Orcust Harp Horror. Then we could just go into this and say we're going to link away Dingrisu and Longrisu into our Ingrisu. Now, after that, what we're going to do is use the effect to add back the Symbol Skeleton, and this is optional, so we're not going to do that. So what does this do? This allows you to, on the opponent's turn, use the effect of Galatea to banish the Galatea from the graveyard to special summon itself. Then you get to use the effect of Galatea to discard the skeleton to bring back and add the crown once again. And since you have the Orcust Nightmare in the graveyard, you could banish itself from the graveyard at its cost to send a World Wand from the deck, and you get to summon out the World Crown. So let's see how that's going to work out. So we're going to revive or resolve the About Q, which is very strong of a card. And during the standby phase, let's just do that right now. We're going to use the Galatea effect, banishing the Galatea, and then we're going to summon her out, and using the effect of her, sending the Symbol Skeleton to send the wand, or add the wand. That's supposed to be the other way around, but that doesn't really matter in the long run, I think. But this should be in the graveyard, or I should have added this to the hand so we could go Nightmare to send that. But it doesn't really matter because we have a Bow Q for that. Now, we can use this to grab something back, but we're not going to. So during the main phase, they're going to try and leave. We're going to use the effect of a Bow Q, discarding the wand, to summon something back, being our crown, which should be on the field. And we could have summoned something back like a Longrisu instead, but that's why we have a backup being able to banish the Symbol Skeleton so we can summon out the Longrisu. So it points to the Inlilgrisu. And now we have another interruption here where we could have actually summoned it into this zone so we could send whatever they summoned to the EMZ. And honestly, this deck seems really good. And overall, I definitely think it's going to be a very interesting deck for the format. Now, there is a lot to learn with this deck, because in the OCG, they do have access to Appaloosa that allows them to have a 3 negate for monsters, because the Orcust Nightmare, and at the end of the turn, it resets to the attack that it once was. We have Inriglisu to add the Orcust Nightmare to take control of a monster, because you're shuffling back the Orcust Nightmare We have World Crown, which negates the activation of one monster effect of a monster which was special summoned from the extra deck and destroy that monster. And then we have Dingrisu in the graveyard with Symbol Skeleton, so we could just summon it out to send a card, a monster your opponent controls, to the graveyard, or a card in general. So this deck has a lot of interruptions, but it does have a lot of weaknesses, like Valencia and all of that, but that's one thing that we have to push through and do. I'm sorry that this video took so long. I just really love Orcust, and I'm happy to see it's back in a playable state like it was back in 2019. And if there's any suggestions down in the comments below, just say that. I would love to know any suggestions that you want to hear, because I do want to stay away from running Fiendsmith in this because I do see it getting hit. So there's that. But anyways, if you guys did enjoy this video, hit that like button down below. If you want to see more deck theories like this, subscribe for more content. And also, if you're interested in Orcust as well, use my TCG player link down in the description below if you want to pick up Orcust cards, or even when we get the Battle Legends pre-sales in June, to pick up those Orcust cards, as they're all going to be reprinted in a special ultra rare with a crest in the effect box, like how the quarter century secret rares were. And they all have their own Orcust crest, and the crest is the head of Dingrisu. But anyways, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next video, and goodbye.